Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other state-level examination. Today we will try and understand some of the important articles that we have picked up from the Hindu, and these are important from both pre as well as the mains examination from GS1, GS2 and GS3 perspective. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article is speaking about the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioner's appointment. Let us try and understand what is this article all about, what is the proposal made by the government, what are the advantages of it, what are the disadvantages of it, the pros and cons, and ultimately let's look at way forward when it comes to the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner as well as the Election Commissioner. First, we have to understand the context. We have one of the important constitutional bodies which happens to be the Election Commission of India. Where is it defined? It is present in Article 324 of the Indian Constitution. Before we could go any further, I have a simple suggestion for you. Whenever you are reading the Constitution of India, what I want you to do is always read the bare acts that is given in picture. Only when you read the bare acts, you will understand the fact what is the original intent of the legislature. You will have various commentaries, you will also have people giving their perspectives as well. But what is the original intention of the legislature can only be understood when you read the bare acts of the Constitution or when you read any other bare act. So what is a bare act? A bare act is without any commentary, it is without any viewpoint, it is without any perception or the perspective of the author or a person. This defines the legislative intent of the legislature. So whenever you are reading a bare act or the Constitution, always have the bare act book so that you understand the original intent of the legislature. Now if you look into the bare act, and that is Article 324 of the Indian Constitution, what does it say? It says superintendence, direction and control of elections to be vested in an election commission. The superintendence, direction and control of the preparation of the electoral rolls for and the conduct of all elections to the Parliament and to the legislature of every state and of elections to the offices of the President and Vice President held under the Constitution shall be vested in the Commission. There are two important pointers, one from the preliminary examination point of view, the other from the mains examination point of view. First, let us understand what can be asked in the preliminary examination. When it comes to the Election Commission of India, it holds election for which of these offices? President of India, yes. Vice President of India, yes. And for the Parliament, which means you will have the MP elections for the Lok Sabha as well as for the Rajya Sabha. Both are held by the Election Commission of India. Apart from that, when it comes to the MLA elections, that is legislative MLA elections, this is once again held by the Election Commission of India. Now, as part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section, some states in India have legislative councils as well. Does the Election Commission of India conduct elections for the Legislative Council? Another question is, how many states in India have the Legislative Council? Please put it on the comment section. So what is that you have to do? You have a task at hand, you have an assignment where you have to put on the comment section whether the Election Commission of India also takes care of the Legislative Council elections. This is from the preliminary examination point of view. From the mains examination point of view, remember that the Election Commission of India is a constitutional body. It would be able to take any action whatsoever in order to conduct the elections in a transparent manner, in an accountable manner and in an efficient manner. So this happens to be a constitutional office. Let's say for example, there have been ample number of cases where there is one person who's there in a village. Even for this one single person, because he has to cast his vote, the Election Commission of India has taken elections. It has made sure that security is provided, booth level officers are present, and ultimately there is a place where this person would be able to come over and cast his vote as well. So the 324 of the Indian Constitution speaks about the Election Commission of India's power, and these powers are extraordinary in nature. from making sure who the appointing officers are, who the booth level officers are, making sure that the elections happen without any issues, from making sure that there is security to these elections and ensuring that there is utmost transparency, the election commission would be able to take all these measures. Now if you look into the clause 2, it says the election commission shall consist of chief election commissioner and such number of other election commissioners, if any, as the president may from time to time fix, and the appointment of the chief election commissioner and other election commissioners shall subject to the provisions of any law made on that behalf by parliament be made by the president. So the second clause clearly also points out that yes, the president of India will decide how many election commissioners will have to bear from time to time. The chief election commissioner is compulsory from the first, immediately after the independence. We have always had the chief election commissioner, but as per the exigencies of time, it is the president who decides how many people have to be there, 1 or 2 or 3. Who can decide that? It is the president of India. So the chief election commissioner is compulsory. So we need to have the chief election commissioner. But if there is additional election commissioners who are required, it is the president who will decide it. But the second clause continuation says that what we also require is a law. But did we have a law in picture? No. Did we have a law which says that these are the powers that are given to the chief election commissioner, these are the powers that are given to the election commissioners? Is it defined in any of the laws? No. That is where there were a couple of cases that were filed in the Supreme Court of India saying that what we require is one such committee, what we require is a body or authority which should be able to appoint who the chief election commissioner is and the election commissioners are. Why did they want this committee? That is because there has to be a law, and that law we did not have till date. So in order to make sure that we have a law, couple of petitions were filed in the Supreme Court of India and added to it. When you look at the present context, you have the president who makes an appointment. How does he make an appointment? You have the law ministry, we have the Ministry of Law. It makes a recommendation to the Prime Minister that, dear Prime Minister, we have these many people who are eligible enough to become the Chief Election Commissioner as well as the election commissioners. So the law ministry that we have makes a recommendation. They pick up and choose the candidates. They feel that this person has got the expertise in the field of election commission. He would be able to do justice to the democracy, and democracy is part of the basic structure. So all the powers that were existing for the chief election commissioner's appointment were completely at the hands of the executive. But don't you think this is violating certain principles of accountability? It is the executive who are making the appointments. It is the executive who are also running the elections as well when there is elections that is coming by. This could be a major problem to the opposition political parties. So the opposition political parties and many other political parties were making an appeal before the Supreme Court of India. Dear Supreme Court of India, give us justice, because there is executive which is making an appointment. Though the chief election commissioner has always remained neutral, there is an apprehension, there is a fear, there is a dilemma whether he would be able to do justice to these sections of the political parties. So ultimately they filed a case in the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court of India looked into all their arguments and they went on to say that in the March 2023 they came out with a verdict. The verdict said, until the executive, that is the government, comes up with a law, until the parliament comes up with a law, we will have a board, we will have a committee. This particular committee will have the Prime Minister, it will also have the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, and we will also have the Chief Justice of India. These three people form a committee and they will make an appointment. So until the parliament makes a law, we three of us, that is the Prime Minister, that is the LOP, that is leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, and the Chief Justice of India, we will make an appointment as to who will be the Chief Election Commissioner and who will be the election commissioners, primarily because it has to be a neutral body which is able to execute all the important paradigms of the election, because this has to be a body which has to be neutral as well. So in the present situation, so up until March 2023, when we didn't have this recommendation given by the Supreme Court of India, what we had is a constitutional vacuum. What is this constitutional vacuum? Section, that is Article 320 4 of the Indian Constitution, clause 2 says that there has to be a law. Since we did not have the law, the state, that is the government, will have to come up with a law, says the Supreme Court of India. So the Supreme Court of India delivers this judgment that until a law is made by the parliament, these 3 people will ensure that there is a selection process who would be able to select that this and this person will be the chief election commissioner, and then so and so person will be the person who will be the election commissioner. So because the Supreme Court said that there has to be a committee or there has to be a law, we have the Government of India which has now introduced a law. So the Supreme Court had ruled that the selection panel should comprise the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India until Parliament enact a law on the manner of appointment in order to come up with a law. What we have is a proposal made by the government in the form of Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners, appointment, conditions of service, term of office bill of 2023 in the Rajya Sabha. Because the Supreme Court made a recommendation, they made an observation, they said come up with a law. Now the government has come up with a law. As per this bill that is being proposed by the government, a search committee will headed by the cabinet secretary and comprising 2 other members not below the rank of a secretary to the government having knowledge and experience in matters relating to elections shall prepare a panel of 5 persons who can be considered for the appointment. What do we understand by this? It means that there will be a cabinet secretary. The cabinet secretary is the highest officer in the civil services examination. So most of you who are preparing for this civil services examination would aspire that you would want to be a cabinet secretary as well. And for all those of you who are putting your best efforts, putting your life into it, heart into it, soul into it, I want you to clear the civil services. This is my personal prayer as well as wishes for all those of you who are preparing this exam with utmost integrity. Now once you become the cabinet secretary, you will have a lot of powers and lot of things that come with it. Let's not go there, but let's stick to this topic now. The cabinet secretary along with 2 other members, what will these people do? They'll be able to select about 5 people. These 5 people will have the intellectual capacity, they should have had the experience of running the elections, they would have seen it personally, they should have a lot of integrity, character. So on the basis of couple of ideas and the principles that have been given by the government, they select 5 people. These 5 people who are selected by this particular cabinet secretary and 2 other people, these 5 people will head to the committee. So the 5 people who will be selected, out of them 1 person will be selected as a chief election commissioner and subsequent election commissioners. Then as per the bill, a selection committee consisting of the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha and a Union Cabinet Minister to be nominated by the Prime Minister will appoint the Chief Election Commissioner as well as the election commissioners. So the Cabinet Secretary and 2 other members, they basically make sure that there are these people who are selected, 5 people are selected and this will be sent to the committee. So the committee amongst these 5 people will ultimately select who will become the chief election commissioner as well as the election commissioners. This is where there are issues and concerns arising out of it. What are the issues and concerns? One, there are opposition political parties which say that yes, when you consider the Supreme Court's order in 2020 that happened in March, what did they say? We have the Prime Minister. Do we have the Prime Minister now? Yes. Then it had the leader of the opposition. Do we have the leader of opposition now in the proposal made? Yes. There you had the Chief Justice of India. Now what do you have? A Union Cabinet Minister to be nominated by the Prime Minister, which means you have 3 people. Out of 3 people, you have 2 people who are present from the executive, 1 from the legislature, that is the leader of opposition. So the sway, the majority, the advantage may tilt in favor of the executive. So this may not serve the purpose is one of the concerns. So the primary focus of this article is the law has been made, that is the bill has been proposed. Is this bill right or is it wrong is what we will be trying and discussing. We will take up couple of arguments in favor of it. Yes, this bill is right. We will also take up couple of articles which will say yes, the bill is not right. So we will take up discussions so that in case there is a question that is asked for your mains examination, you would be able to answer them. So the first is, let's take up all those arguments which says that yes, this particular bill is right. First argument says that we have the Supreme Court of India. What did the Supreme Court of India say? The Supreme Court of India said that what we require is a law. What did the government do? The government has come up with a proposal. They have come up with a proposal to introduce a bill. So we will have a law in the near future once we have the consent and the assent of the President of India. So do we have a law? Yes, we will have a law. So what was the intent of the Supreme Court of India? The intent of the Supreme Court of India was, it was asking the Parliament to come up with a legislation. Has the Parliament come up with a legislation? Yes. So the idea being, do we have a law? Yes. Supreme Court asked for a law, so they came up with a law. So this is the proposal being made by the Parliament. So is it right? Yes. So the first argument is, all that the Supreme Court said is that you make a law. So they have made a law. It did not prescribe parameters to say that so and so person will have to be incorporated, so on and so forth. But what the Supreme Court said in March was that until you make a law, this will be the authority or a committee which will have these many members. They did not prescribe, or they did not say that the CJI should be part of this particular panel. So all that the government is trying to say right now is that the Supreme Court has come up with this recommendation. It has said only make a law. So we have made a law. First argument. Second argument is, let's go back to the year 2017. In the judgments that have been made by the Supreme Court of India and in the observations that have been made by the Supreme Court of India, a couple of judgments, they said that up until 2023, when this judgment and observation was not made by the Supreme Court of India, what the Supreme Court had held was that we have no law, that there was no law when it comes to governing who the Chief Election Commissioner is, who the Election Commissioner is. We have had number of people who have had impeccable character. We have had Sukumaran Sen sir. Who was Sukumaran Sen sir? Immediately after independence, India, which was the great Akhanda Bharat, was broken down into two countries. One was India, where we all live, we all love, and we had Pakistan as well. And many people from Pakistan started moving to India. So initially there were very less number of people, and because Pakistan also became an independent country, many people started moving to India as well. So immediately after independence, under the guidance and the leadership of Sukumaran Sen, what we were able to do is have the elections, and these elections happened with utmost integrity. Did we have a law then? No. Then we have T.N. Seshan sir. T.N. Seshan sir was also able to bring massive reforms when it comes to the election commission. He was able to go at the grassroots levels, ignite passions, and also was able to bring massive transformation when it comes to the elections of the country. In fact, he took upon the government, he took upon the opposition, he took upon all political parties, and he was able to remain neutral as well. So did we have a law back then? No. When it is about people, people's commitment, nothing can stop them, says the Supreme Court judgments. So when we have not had the law, it basically is driving a conclusion that whosoever is appointed, it is the appointed person who should be able to speak up to his work. He is the person who is coming out with a lot of energy and ultimately keeping the system under check. So we might have a person who might be appointed by this particular committee, but he may become corrupt. That is what is the wordings that we have to see. He may become corrupt or he may not become corrupt. So it is not just the authority which is making the appointment, but it is who the person is who's coming to that particular role. So Sukumaran sir was an example, Seshan sir was an example. So we've had some impeccable people who have had some impeccable character, and they've been able to run the elections for the country. So it is not who the authority is per se, but it is the person who is holding that position that matters. So if we are able to appoint this person who has impeccable character, then that will help and suffice. So there is not much that the committee can do, is another set of argument. The third set of argument is that the bill also proposes that the chief election commissioner would be equivalent to that of the cabinet secretary, and the salary that would be given to the cabinet secretary is what would be given to the chief election commissioner. Now the question that is being asked is, this was being equated to article 324 of the Indian constitution, which was similar to the judge of the Supreme Court. While earlier the constitution clearly prescribes that it is equivalent to the Supreme Court judge, why has the government introduced that the salary would be equivalent to that of the cabinet secretary? So the authors in this case, that is the commentators in this case, also say, what is the salary of the cabinet secretary? What is the salary of the judges of the Supreme Court of India? It is same. So why make a fuss about it? The idea of the government is that this is an executive post. This happens to be a judicial post. So when you have executive post being equated to executive post, there is nothing wrong with it, is another idea. So when you look at these arguments, they go on to say that the government has come up with a law as envisaged and wanted by the Supreme Court of India. So there are no issues. So everything is good, are some arguments. There are other set of arguments as well. What are those? Which says that this bill is not meeting the original intent of the Supreme Court of India. The Election Commission is a crucial entity for the existence of the democracy. Democracy is one of the important principles of the basic structure doctrine. It is also part of the basic structure doctrine, which means to say this cannot be amended even by the parliament if they so desire. When we say democracy is part of the basic structure, you need a person who is of impeccable character, as we just discussed. But what if there is a person who is not so? We don't know who the person is. We are assuming for the fact that a person who is coming up has this sort of character. But if we can keep a check that it is so and so person, what we require is equality. What we require is the presence of all these people who would be able to send a person who is politically neutral. But when you have two people within the present system, one happens to be the Prime Minister, the other happens to be a Union Minister appointed by the Prime Minister, where is the neutrality? Had it been the Chief Justice of India or any other person apart from the executive, maybe we could have sent a person like this. But now, since there is sway or majority in favor of the executive, there may be a person who might be appointed by the government, and this person may listen to the executive, It is not that we are saying he listen to the executive, he may listen to the executive, which means to say that a person may go in line with the call of the executive. This is the major concern. The second major concern is that we have the Union Public Service Commission. We also have the Chief Information Commissioner as well. There are a couple of statutory bodies, there are a couple of constitutional bodies whose reputation and value that has been added by the Constitution of India is also at stake. Why? That is because a chief election commissioner, when equated with the Supreme Court judge, removal proceedings when it comes to the Supreme Court judge is not that easy. When it comes to the Supreme Court judge, it has a different establishment, it is a different entity, it is a different organ of the state which is completely independent. Let's look at Article 50 of the Indian Constitution. What does it say? It speaks about separation of powers between executive and the judiciary. So they're drawing a difference between the executive and the judiciary. Why did the government equate the chief election commissioner with the cabinet secretary? Why not remain the same way as it is in the present situation, which is to do with the Supreme Court of India? If it is equivalent to the Supreme Court of India's judge, the independence that would be given is far too much as well. They would not come under the whims and fancies of the executive. The executive will not be able to keep the check of the election commissioner because they are completely independent in themselves. Now, by equating it to the cabinet secretary, are they giving an impression that they would be able to control the executive? Had it been judiciary, they would have been completely independent. They would not have any control under them because they are an independent institution, because they would be equated to the role of the Supreme Court judge. But now it is equated to the cabinet secretary's role, so they would be able to control the executive in a way that they want, is the second issue. Added to it, Article 324 Clause 5 of the Constitution lays down that the terms of the service of the Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioner will be as enacted by the Parliament, provided that the removal of the Chief Election Commissioner will be as the removal of the Supreme Court judges. So the author also backs it up. It says that this is just a general law that the government of India is coming up with. This happens to be a constitutional provision that is existing in the system. So the constitutional provision cannot be overwritten by a normal law. So the government has the right to do only few things, and few other things it may not be able to do. If it intends to do, then what we require is a constitutional amendment. With all this in picture, even if the government has come up with this bill, and if the Supreme Court feel it is not neutral, what the Supreme Court has is the principle of judicial review. Judicial review is part of the basic structure, so they still would be able to see through it, and if it is not meeting the intended standards, they can bring about a change, suggest the government to bring a change, says this article. So basically, we've had the advantages, we've also had the disadvantages, but the point is, if it is not meeting the spirit of law, yes, we have the law, but what if it is not meeting the spirit of the law? If the spirit of the law is not being met, in that case, they can question it before the Supreme Court of India, and the Supreme Court of India will ultimately decide whether it is right or wrong, is what we have to understand with this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about the National Film Awards. What are we speaking about? This article is important from your GS paper 1 culture perspective. The article here is speaking about the National Film Awards. First, we will try and understand what is these awards, what would happen, what is the essence of these awards, and then we will take up some of the awards that are given in this particular year. The awards were first presented in the year 1954. So remember, the first time it was presented was in the year 1954. This happens to be one of the prestigious awards that is given by the government of India to the film industry in our country based on the kind of films that they come up with. The government of India conceived the ceremony to honor films made across India on a national scale to encourage the furthering of Indian art as well as culture. Since the year 1973, the Indian Directorate of Film Festivals administers the ceremony along with other major film events in the India annually. So remember, this happens on an annual basis, and this was established back in the year 1954, and these awards are some of the prestigious as well as most looked after awards when it comes to the film industry in India. So these are very important factual data. So what is the objective of this particular program? The objective is to encourage more production of the films, is to ensure that a particular film from one industry is being watched by another industry, or a movie from one industry, or let's say from one of the languages, is spread across pan India, so that the diversity of a region can also be understood by people of a different region. Let me give you an example. We had a recent Kannada movie called as Kantara. Kantara happens to be a Kannada movie which was made in the state of Karnataka. There is a specific culture, custom attached in the specific region of Karnataka which many people may not know across the length and breadth of the country. So what would happen when this movie is released in the state of Karnataka and it is being watched in, let's say, a state like Assam, or let's say in a state like Punjab, there are cultural differences, but they will enjoy it. They will understand the beauty and the diversity of India. This is the very foundation on which India is built on. We have myriad religions, castes, so on and so forth. But what is the beauty of India? Amidst all these differences, we are able to mold the relationship. So a movie which is based in South India, or in the eastern part of India, or in the northeastern part of India, if it is made, other section of the people will have to see it, because the beauty of diversity should be understood by other section of the people. So in order to encourage self-culture, in order to encourage the talent, in order to encourage the storytelling and the diversity of the country, in order to identify them, the government promotes it and honors them with what is called as the National Film Award. There are two kinds of films. One is what is called as the feature film. The other is what is called as the non-feature film. What is this feature film? Let's say for example you are watching a movie which is more than 40 minutes, and this happens to be a movie which will have its own lyrics, choreography, so it is a full-fledged film. So a full-fledged film which is more than 40 minutes or more is called as a feature film. For example, you have the Bollywood actors, Tollywood actors, Collywood actors, Sandalwood actors, Mollywood actors. So these people who make a movie which is more than 40 minutes or more is called as a feature film. This will have its own share of VHF, it will have its own share of graphics, so on and so forth. You would have the director, artist and all this. But when it comes to the non-feature film, it is more of a documentary in nature, a documentary about a persisting reality that is existing in the society. Let's say for example, there are a certain section of people, let's say the tribal people, who are not able to get the required basic amenities. So I go up to that particular place, I shoot a movie out of it. It is a documentary, it is a right, it is a particular objective for me to shoot that particular movie. So in feature films, what we will have is not the reality, it might be a fiction as well, but when it comes to the non-feature film, it is the reality that is existing. So I shoot it and I ultimately throw open to the people of the country in the form of a documentary. So in the feature films, what we will have is various kinds of artists. So the awards are given in 31 categories, which include award for the best feature film, Indira Gandhi Award for best film of a director, award for best popular film providing wholesome entertainment, award for the best direction, actor, actress, editing, lyrics, choreography, so on and so forth. This is for a full-fledged film. And then you also have a documentary as well. This is also being awarded, which is called as a non-feature film, like the best biographical, historical reconstruction, compilation film, special jury award, best choreography, so on and so forth. So you have two types of films. One is the feature film, the other happens to be a non-feature film. While selection for the winners in features and non-features is recognition of excellence in cinematic achievements in various categories, the best writing on cinema section focuses on encouraging the study and appreciation of cinema as an art form and dissemination of information and critical appreciation of the art form through the publication of various books, articles, reviews, newspaper coverage, so on and so forth. So basically, this is the award that is given by the Government of India on an annual basis for recognition of the beauty of the film making in India. How does the award work? Who actually gives these award? Every year we have a national panel which is appointed by the government, which selects the winning entry, and the award ceremony is held in the New Delhi. And this award is also presented by the President of India. There are strict criteria as to whether a film is eligible for consideration by the jury panels. Over 100 films made across the country are entered in each category, feature and non-feature, for the awards and are deemed eligible each year. So there is a criterion that would be prescribed. There will be a set of rules that will be given to this jury. So the jury will be from the film fraternity. They will be from the arts background. So the government will not make any recommendation to these people which says that you have to select so and so people from so and so industry, nothing like that. So general rules will be given and the government will not interfere. So you will have the jury who will be from the film industry and from the other sector who will understand what the film industry is, and ultimately they make a decision with respect to who should be awarded what. A list of rules is presented every year in a document of regulations known as the National Film Award Regulations. The criteria for eligibility contain many clauses. According to the criteria, in order to be eligible for consideration by the jury, a film should be certified by the Central Board of Film Certification between 1st of January and 31st of December. So what has happened in the past year will be given in this year. So for the year 2023, all those films that have been in news in the year 2022, that is the preceding year, will be considered, and whosoever is decided, the best movie, the best actor, the best actresses will be decided, and they'll be making a recommendation, and on the basis of the recommendation, what we will have is the President of India who will be making these awards to the people. So who decides these awards? It is the jury which will decide, and ultimately they will be awarded. So in the present situation, if we look into who have been given the awards, what we have is best direction, which is given to Nikhil Mahajan for Godavari. Best supporting actor happens to be Pankaj. Best supporting actor female happens to be Pallavi Joshi for Kashmir Files. Nargis Dutt award for best feature film on the national integration happens to be the Kashmir Files. Best film on social issues happen to be Anandan. Indira Gandhi award for best debut film happens to be Vishnu Mohan for Mepadian, and special jury award for Vishnu Vardhan for Shesha. And then best actor female happens to be Alia Bhatt and Kriti Sanoon for Mimi, and best actor happens to be Allu Arjun for Pushpa the Race. The best feature film happens to be Rocketry the Nambi Effect, and award for best popular film providing wholesome entertainment happens to be RRR. These could be asked for your prelims examination, so do remember all these important parameters. And when it comes to the other award, what we also have is the Dada Saheb Phalke Award. This was instituted in 1969 when presented to Devika Rani. The Dada Saheb Phalke Award was introduced by the Government of India to commemorate Dada Saheb Phalke's contribution to Indian cinema, who directed India's first full-length feature film Raja Harishchandra in 1913. This could be another important question. India's first full-length feature film happens to be Raja Harishchandra. This came back in the year 1913 and this was directed by Dada Saheb Phalke. And this is honored with highest award in the film industry. The recipients are recognized for their outstanding contribution to the growth and development of the Indian cinema. The award comprises a Swarna Kamal, Golden Lotus Medallion, a shawl and a cash prize. Even in the National Film Awards as well, what they will be given is a medallion, a shawl and a cash prize, basically to encourage the talent. So what is the significance of this? One, more movies will come up. Movie industry will start exploring couple of other areas which is undiscovered, unopened up till date. We will have more number of people who will be coming up to the film industry, more innovation, more employment opportunities, more heroes and actresses who will all come up, and ultimately the diversity of a region will be reintroduced to people of another state so that they understand the diversity of another state in our country. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about one of the important concepts which are important from paper 3, GS paper 3 environment, and also from your international relations perspective. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about the Northern Sea Route. Where is this Northern Sea Route? If you can take a look into this part, this happens to be the Northern Sea Route. So you have the Northern Sea Route which is marked in blue. Then you also have the NSR water area boundary. What is this Northern Sea Route? We know for the fact that Arctic region, which is in the North Pole, is filled with ice. It is not easy for us to break this ice, but what is happening over a period of time? We have the climate change variations. What the anthropogenic factors, the human induced factors have done over a period of time is, with the gases that are released, with the carbon emissions that have been taking place, with the human induced factors, what we are seeing is melting of the ice in the northern part as well as in the southern part, but we see more so prominent in the northern part. Why? That is because we have more activities in the northern hemisphere and we have more ice which is getting melted in the northern part in the Arctic region. So which are the countries that we have in the Arctic region? We have United States of America, we also have Russia, so on and so forth. But the focus is more on Russia because this happens to be one of the important countries which is able to exploit and make use of the Arctic region for too many purposes. What are these purposes? One is for the travel. Let's say for example, if there is no, let's take for example, as of now, if I have to export, let's say from Russia, it happens via North Sea, it happens via the Baltic Sea, and from the Baltic Sea they come all the way along the Egypt and from there to Asia, and that is how it is exported. So instead of exporting from this, what we can make use of is the Northern Sea Route. So instead of going all the way, what they can start exporting is via this particular channel. So this will save a lot of money. This will also save a lot of time as well. But how do we do it? We have a lot of ice that is covered. This is where the article goes on to say that what Russia has been able to do, it has nuclear powered icebreakers. So these icebreakers are able to break the ice that is existing in the Arctic region. On one side, the anthropogenic induced factors in the Arctic region is able to reduce the ice. We have more water content in this part rather than the ice, and at the same time we have Russia which has the nuclear icebreakers. They're able to break the ice as well. So with this, what we are able to send is export all these products in the Arctic region. So this happens to be the northern sea route is one part. Added to it, whenever we have this ice cover that decreases over a period of time, we would be able to conduct couple of economic activities as well. Let's say for example fishing in this region, and as much as 40% of the oil reserves are still present in the Arctic region. Since 40% of the oil reserves are still present in the Arctic region, natural gas is still present, we would be able to exploit the fuel as well. If discovered more, if we are able to exploit and extract it, we will have a larger economic prosperity. So this article primarily goes on to say that India has been part of this Arctic region for a very long period of time. It has been engaging in such activities from a very long period of time, and as a result, India will be able to reap the benefits of it. So the Northern Sea Route happens to be the shortest shipping route from freight transportation between Europe and countries of Asia Pacific region. It straddles 4 seas of the Arctic Ocean, running 5,600 km. The route begins at the boundary between Barents and Kara seas, and it also makes a mention of Kara state and ends in the Bering state. How is Russia making use of the NCR? Arctic region remains icebound, but then we have Russia which is able to make use of the ice breaking assistance in this particular country, and Russia is the only country in the world with a nuclear powered icebreaker fleet according to Rosatom State Energy Corporation. So with this, India will be able to speak up to Russia and other countries in and around it, and it will be able to exploit the gases and many other fuels that are existing in this part. Added to it, they will also be able to export the energy which India is already engaging with Russia. So we would be also able to save on our foreign exchange, is what is this article all about. There are few facts which are given in this article. Just go through these facts, but the larger picture is that Arctic is melting. This is disastrous in terms of climate change, but advantageous in terms of economic prosperity, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says to enhance IAF efficiency, government to buy weapons locally. What this article is directly speaking is in terms of indigenization, Atmanirbharata, and basically about we having our own set of equipments so that we are self-dependent on ourselves and not dependent on another country. The Defence Acquisition Council, under the chairmanship of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, accorded acceptance of necessity for capital acquisition proposals estimated at about 7,800 crore. What is that we are procuring through this particular model? It includes procurement and installation of electronic warfare suite, that is M17V5 helicopters, a ground-based autonomous system for mechanized infantry, armored regiment, light machine guns and bridge-laying tanks. Then we also have the ground-based autonomous systems for mechanized infantry. Armored regiments will enable various operations such as unmanned surveillance, logistic delivery of ammunition, fuel and spares, and casualty evacuation on the battlefield. And the ministry said while induction of the LMG will enhance the fighting capabilities of the infantry, the induction of the BLT will result in faster movement of the mechanized forces. So this is the advantage of the indigenization. One, it will help during the surveillance, it will help in logistic delivery, and in case there has to be people who have to picked up at the time of a disaster, this particular helicopter will help in. So basically it is speaking about Mi-17V5 helicopter, which is important, which is what they are procuring right now for couple of important consignments. And just as we discussed, these are important for indigenization. The AON for procurement of rugged laptops and tablets for the army under the Project Shakti has also been approved. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section, what is this Project Shakti? What are its objectives? Please put it on the comment section. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Japan releases water from Fukushima plant. So where is Fukushima plant? It happens to be a plant which is located in Japan. In 2011, what happened? There were earthquakes as well as there were earthquakes as well as tsunami. Because of earthquakes and tsunami, there was a nuclear power plant. This was damaged, and as a result, lot of nuclear waste entered the sea. And this particular plant of Fukushima was being developed from the 1970s, and after 2011 incident, they wanted to decommission this nuclear plant. In order to make sure that this plant is taken care of, water was being used, and this water was basically making sure that this entire nuclear power plant that we have is kept cooler. They wanted to decommission this Fukushima power plant. In order to decommission this Fukushima power plant, what they had was water. This water was constantly maintaining the temperatures over a period of time, and after a considerable period of time, this goes through the filtration system. So the filtration system will basically ensure that all the waste that is there within that particular nuclear power plant is ultimately removed, and after a considerable period of time, this is removed, and we have the waste that is present within the nuclear power plant, and these wastes are completely removed by the filtration system, and now what we have left over is the water. This water, after the filtration system, is now being released into the Pacific Ocean. So that is where the problem is. So Japan says that we have the water. This water was safeguarding the nuclear power plant, and after it is safeguarded, it is pushed through the filtration system, and from the filtration system, whatever is left out, the water is now being released into the waters of the Pacific Ocean. So there are countries which are voicing their opinion, which says that when this wastewater is released into the Pacific Ocean, this still can have negative elements. For example, they say that it has passed through the filtration system, so on and so forth. Despite passing through the filtration system, it can still be a problematic area as it will contain the contaminants. This could ultimately impact the health of the people. This could also impact fishing industry as well. This could also impact the salt industry as well. So countries like China and also countries like South Korea have been apprehensive because this wastewater, if it is released into the Pacific Ocean, could be harmful. Japan says it is harmless because it has already gone through the filtration system, but these countries have an apprehension that it could have far more consequences on the health parameters, on the salt industry as well as the fishing industry. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So this is it for today. If you are liking these initiatives, please do like, subscribe to our YouTube channel and share it with your fellow aspirants as well. Thank you for watching. All the best.